Hello everybody, welcome to Perspectives 2022. My name is Phoebe Kingston, I'm owner of Warren Academy and I'm your MC for today. My role is just to transition us through to different sessions and be a warm fuzzy voice throughout your experience with us for a couple of afternoons. So in opening, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping and we'll move into our first session shortly. This symposium is over 2 afternoons. They're in afternoon sessions, and your ticket gives you access to all of the sessions. So you're not going to need to re-register each time to go into new sessions. All that is taken care of for you with your ticket. If you do lose sound or video at some point, please check your own Zoom sessions. We may have some people who have not used Zoom or Zoom events before. You can check your settings and also your computer settings, but please feel free to use the chat box if you think there's a Zoom event issue. We do have a backstage crew that will be all over it. So yeah, just a few little housekeeping things before we kick off. There's 10 minutes between each session, so if you do need, grab a cup of tea, quick break, center yourself, any self-care, and just moving what we often call in some spaces like the third space. So there are little breaks between each sessions, and that's for your comfort. There will be people in our backstage area that are there to monitor chat, so please use the chat box function if you need to. In your bottom bar across the screen that you're in Zoom, there'll be an icon that says chat, and you'll be able to type messages into there, read messages and have some connection with us. So please do use that if you'd like to. Throughout today, we're going to be hearing lots of people with personal lived experience of mental health challenges and issues, distress and well-being, sharing parts of their story, parts of their experience. And we never know if we're going to find something challenging, uncomfortable. So we do have lots of what we call content warnings, and you'll see lots of these popping up perhaps in your chat box, and we do have reminders. You can probably see one on the screen now. And we're also really encouraging, supporting, welcoming, embracing courageous conversations. So we have lived experience speakers today from all backgrounds. Some have spoken professionally many times and some are newer to sharing their story and their experiences publicly. And we really do encourage for this e-symposium to really embrace those conversations, lean into the discomfort. That's a sweet spot for our learning and our growth. And so we're really, really supportive of that. And so be mindful of that if you're using the chat box function and in conversations even after today. And we'd also like to obviously remind everyone that self-care is really important. As I've said, we never know when we may find something more challenging or in the least uncomfortable than we thought that we might. And so do whatever you normally do to take care of yourself, look after yourself, whether that's nurture or other self-care strategies. So there will be lots of little reminders during the e-symposium, and there will also be help and support line numbers available in all the reminders and in chat box too throughout the e-symposium. So yes, please make use of all of those or any of those as and when you need. We decided to call this e-symposium the Perspectives 2022, because perspectives is a wonderful word because we all have them. We all have different lenses and experiences which evolve our perspectives. And what you're going to hear today is a diverse array of perspectives. And yeah, I'll get very excited, but it's going to be absolutely wonderful. And so, yeah, we were thrilled when choosing our title, Perspectives, because there are so many. There's a multiplicity of views and experiences. So that's really what you're going to hear today. We are going to have a wonderful acknowledgement to country shortly by Shearer. And I will do a little intro now for John so that you can be a little bit familiar with who John is. John is a member of our Finding North network. And if you haven't joined already, you can do so at findingnorthnetwork.com.au, and all those links will be ever present throughout the webinar. We'll keep reminding you. John Shearer has had an incredible lived experience, endured a very large motor vehicle accident in 1992, and actually died and was revived with great effort, and left with very difficult physical injuries. But his story, when he shares his story, he often focuses on what he says were 15 years of mental and emotional suffering. So lots and lots of lived experience John has, but he's mainly focusing on his acknowledgement to country today, and a little bit of a yarn for us as well. John founded the Mindfulness Institute, and also mindfullymad.org. And the MAD stands for Mindfully Making a Difference. John has done over 9,000 hours in mindfulness study and practice, and has a Facebook page. He's a mindfulness master and has over 650 followers on his Facebook page. And he's also a published author, and has just finished publishing his second book, Mindfulness Insights. It's a radical practice for self-realization. John is a fascinating member of our Finding North network, and I'm going to pass over to him now to do his acknowledgement to country. So thank you so much, John.
Thanks, Phoebe. To kick off, I'm going to go actually to the findingnorthnetwork.com.au and just read the acknowledgement that's on that page. Finding North Network acknowledges the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to them and their cultures, and the elders past and present, and I might just add emerging as well. Also, it says, we acknowledge and value the expertise of people, families and carers with living experience of mental health conditions. We recognise and amplify marginalised voices to build a more inclusive future for everyone. And I don't know who wrote that, but congratulations. It's well written and to the point, and it's quite simple. So I'd just like to share a little bit of my story, my journey, if you like. My grandmother was Aboriginal, and she was taken away from her Aboriginal mother because she had a white father. This was back around 1890. I'm going back a while. And she was placed in a white family to be raised as a maid. And the consequence of that was she was a very angry woman. She wasn't black enough to be black, and she wasn't white enough to be white, and she didn't fit in. And because of that, she had a lot of issues. And you know, those sorts of issues and generational anger is still present today, especially in Aboriginal communities. And that's why acknowledging their culture, their history is very important. I know sometimes I think, oh yeah, okay, acknowledgement of country, here we go again, because everything you join, that's how it starts. But it's important to acknowledge our history, the past, and the fact that this generational anger exists. And that's just how it is. So, I acknowledge their culture especially. Matter of fact, I've made it my business, if you like, to research Aboriginal culture, just like I've researched all cultures around the globe with mindfulness. That was my interest starting in 2009. Yeah, Phoebe, I have, that's not 650 followers, it's 650,000 followers on my mindfulness Facebook page. But anyhow, mindfulness can be found in all cultures. Sometimes it's not called mindfulness, but it's there. And it's the thing that really changed my life. I know I had a spiritual awakening after 15 years of mental suffering in 1997, and I got my life back. At that time, I was told by mental health professionals that what I had was incurable, that I'd have to take medication for the rest of my life and that I'd never work again. And I believed them because they're the professionals. What would I know? I was just a humble truck driver, actually, until I crashed in my truck. And that kept me stuck, really stuck in the mental health system. And then in 1997, on what was to become World Mental Health Day, 10th of October, it's coming up again. It's a very important date for me. An old friend of mine knocked on my door and he said, I hadn't seen him for 20 years, since well before my accident. And he, in his words, he had a spiritual prompt to come and knock on my door and share his story. And that's why I always encouraging people to share their stories, just like we share our stories here, and especially on Finding North Network. Some beautiful stories shared. And it's important because it's the way we're going to overcome stigma around mental health, for one thing. I think it's one powerful way of overcoming, actually. Yeah, so getting back to Aboriginal culture. In Aboriginal culture, there's a few different words because there's different dialects around Australia. But Miriam Rose, she was Australian of the Year a couple of years back. And her message for Australia, her gift for Australia, if you like, is Dadiri, Dadiri, Dadiri. And Dadiri means deep listening in a quiet, still place. And where I come from on the East Coast, in Bundjalung language, there's a word Ghana, Gan''Na. And Ghana has been practiced for millennium in Aboriginal culture. It's been used to overcome trauma. And we've all had trauma. So in Aboriginal culture, someone's traumatized, like a death in the family, for example, and they went and see the spiritual guru of the tribe, and every tribe had one, which is the same as most cultures around the planet, ancient cultures I'm talking about, and taught Ghana. So they're sent off into the bush, barefoot. Well, they were barefoot anyhow, but barefoot's good. That's why we love walking on a beach, because it takes the static out of our body. So they go off into the bush, into nature, and practice deep listening, which is listening beyond our thoughts. And when we do that, we get connected. And as long as our mind is quiet enough, nature speaks to us, and we get answers. An animal might run out of the bush if we've got something on our mind, or birds might land on a branch near us or whatever. And we kind of get a spiritual confirmation, if you like. And, you know, deep listening beyond our thoughts, not with our ears, is mindfulness. And it's a very simple, deceptively simple practice. It helps us live in the present moment, which is really the only place to be. And you've probably all heard the past is gone, the future's not here yet. And when we do dwell on the past, listen to stories that pop up from the past, then it can make us depressed. And when we start thinking about the future, it can make us anxious. So stay in the present moment. Aboriginal culture has a lot to offer and a lot to teach us. And another thing that I've done for the last 10 years, not counting COVID time, because I used to conduct yarning circles at the mental health ward at Coffs Harbour Base Hospital until visitors weren't allowed, and they're still not allowed. But yarning circle in Aboriginal culture is very powerful. We sit in a circle, and ideally we pick a different leader each week who brings a subject or a topic, and then we go around the circle and everybody gives their view on that topic. In traditional culture, it was the men who did this. If there was an issue in the tribe, for example, then they'd voice the issue, what the issue was. They go around the circle, everybody puts in what they think, and then if it comes to a solution, then they adopt the solution. It's done. If not, if everyone didn't agree, it goes around the circle again and again until everybody agrees. Wouldn't it be good if politics was like that? We can only live and hope, I guess, about that. But I'd encourage everyone to, rather than have someone stand up at the front and talk to the congregation, if that's what it is, no, sit in a circle and everybody be involved. It's heaps better. Yeah, so Aboriginal culture has a lot to offer, and we should really start seeking, you know, their advice on their own peoples. So I'd just like to once again acknowledge, you know, the traditional owners of this land, and respect is such a huge word, and respect their elders, their voice, and start listening. I know I did leadership training many years ago, and the top two traits of leadership is listening and empathy. Think about that. Amazing, isn't it? Listening and empathy. And some of our leaders could probably learn a little bit about that. So, you know, thank you very much, everyone, for joining this webinar today. And I'm sure this will continue in the future. Perspective is such a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I know after 15 years stuck in the mental health system in 1997, I'm so thankful to my old friend who knocked on my door that day and gave me a different perspective. That changed everything. That changed my life. I was able to get on with my life with my newfound perspective. So, you know, thank you very much, everyone. So I'll hand back to Phoebe now.
Thank you so much, John. Beautiful, beautiful. I love hearing you speak. I've had the pleasure of having a couple of little yarns with you on the Finding North network, and we've been in a couple of groups together and had some chats, and it's such a privilege to hear not just bits of your story, but of your learning and your insights. So I just really wanted to say a big thank you to you for coming on today and to doing that for us. It's so lovely to have you helping us open up this e-symposium. So thank you, John. And I'm sure everyone who's watching has really so enjoyed that. I almost wish I wasn't MC, because I just would love to sit back and just relax and listen to everyone, but hey ho. I would like to shortly, we'll be switching into another session where Tony Stevenson, the CEO of MIFA, Mental Illness Fellowship Australia, will be doing a full introduction to this Perspectives 2022 e-symposium. I thought I'd spend a minute to say what perspectives can or might mean. There's a very interesting quote by Gustav Flaubert, and it goes like this: "There is no truth, only perception." And yeah, sometimes just when I say that quote, it's nice to have a little pause and just really unpack that in our minds. It is an astounding quote, and it is a fantastic topic for an e-symposium that is really focusing and amplifying and supporting lived experience voices, because our perspectives and our views are everything that we carry into our life, our world, families, communities, our peer work, if we are lived experience peer workers. So I don't want to talk too much about topic, because I don't want to infringe on Tony's wonderful introduction. Pardon me. So shortly, what we're going to do, we're going to be closing this session and moving into another one, but I do want to also just make another reminder that if any of the speakers really spark your interest today, and you've got burning questions and you want to chat, connect with them, you can do so on the Finding North Network. You can get to that, www.findingnorthnetwork.com.au. All of our speakers are members there. We all connect quite often. It is an incredible platform. And if you have questions, there's plenty of time after the conference, all the time in the world, really, to go in and ask your favourite speakers your questions and connect with them. So I hope that you've really enjoyed that opening, and we're going to, like I said, move shortly into the other session. And just one more reminder for everyone as well, as we move into the next session. You won't need to press any buttons or do too much. It's all handled via the backstage. And yeah, make sure that you're comfortable and ready for meeting Tony. And we're going to head in now. So I'll be closing this session, and we'll just have a few minutes before that next session starts. So if anyone needs a quick break, now would be the time. Okay, see you on the other side.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to be joining you and to be a part of this wonderful e-symposium. I'm Tony Stevenson. I'm the CEO of the Mental Illness Fellowship of Australia, or MIFA. I'm joining you from Meanjin, Brisbane, the traditional country of the Yagara and Turrbal countries. And I share John Shearer's wonderful acknowledgement of country and welcome and great yarn. Thank you, John. I really enjoyed that. So welcome to Perspectives 2022, Finding North Network's first lived experience e-symposium. And over the next 2 days, we'll be amplifying lived experience perspectives in mental health, and you'll hear from a wonderful lineup of lived experience speakers, leaders and advocates from right across Australia. We'll explore lived experience reflections and stories of hope, recovery, advocacy and leadership. We'll explore the concept of lived experience leadership and the diverse lived experience approaches, communities and organisations across Australia. We'll explore why the inclusion of lived and living experience perspectives are essential, and how you can make an impact, how we can all make an impact using our lived experience voice. Perspectives 2022 is funded by the Australian Department of Social Services, and I'd certainly like to acknowledge their support, and also proudly supported by the Mental Illness Fellowship of Australia. We're a national policy and advocacy organisation which supports over 20,000 people across Australia through our member organisation. By now, many of you know about Finding North Network, and many of you are a part of the network. And for those that haven't yet joined, I'd certainly encourage you to have a look at Finding North Network. It's a safe and secure online platform where people with lived and living experience of mental health conditions from diverse backgrounds can develop their voice and safely share their experience and stories. And also to connect to opportunities to better build support services, grounded in the reality of those whose well-being depends on them. Finding North Network's vision is a strong one. The voice and influence of people with lived experience of mental health conditions will be amplified within their own lives, across the community, and in the governance, design and delivery of policies, programs and services. And MIFA is proud to host the network and to amplify the voice of lived experience. I'd like to share something of my story today and join with others who are also very generously sharing their story as well. In many respects, I come from a very privileged background. As a straight white male, fourth generation living in Australia, I know that my experiences have been far more privileged than many others. Certainly in my own family and my community and the work that I've done, there is such great diversity, and particularly in my immediate family. We have 12 different cultural backgrounds, including First Nations, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander people. We have people who have a range of mental health conditions, including family members who have quite significant challenges in their mental health and have spent time in the public mental health system and are supported through mental health services. And I also have many members of my immediate family who have diverse gender identities, and that reflects our community more broadly. So as a person who works in the mental health sector, I'm very aware of what my role is. Yes, I'm a carer, although I do describe myself as a family member, a father, a parent. I'm also somebody who understands social issues and barriers and have a very strong sense of social justice. But my role as a family member, as an advocate, is not the role of lived experience. It's different. And it's been really important for me to understand that difference. For me to understand that I need to reflect and to be self-aware of my privileged background and what I need to do to be able to play an important part in allyship, supporting advocacy, supporting people living with mental health conditions. So, what is an ally? Why is allyship critical to supporting lived experience? So for me, this is an active and consistent practice of understanding the power and privilege that comes through my experience, and to harness that in order to achieve equity, inclusion, and justice, while holding myself accountable to those with lived experience. So allyship is an active practice. It requires action. It's not an identity we just get to claim to say, well, I'm an advocate or I'm an ally. It's not passive. It's not just simply believing in the values of diversity, inclusion, and equity. That's a great start. But we must actively live those values through concrete actions and behaviours. So importantly, as I said, it is really a matter of exploring the concept of privilege. I do enjoy reasonably good mental health. And so for me, I haven't had to take much time off work, for example, due to aspects such as anxiety or depression or psychosis. I haven't felt the need, that additional need to be accepted by others. I've generally been able to feel comfortable in my own shoes. So it's being aware of that sort of experience, I guess, is so important to being able to provide that necessary role as an ally. I need to learn about the issues facing people living with mental health conditions, and that's why the e-symposium is so important to people like myself. And I'm really pleased to acknowledge others who have joined, perhaps not joining with their own lived experience of a mental health condition, but joining because they're part of this movement of reform and advocacy, and joining with me as allies. We have to really understand and consider the ways in which stigma prevents people from reaching out, from amplifying their own voice. And none of this can happen unless we understand what power and privileges we hold. And we know that society hasn't distributed power and privilege equally amongst people. So allyship's purpose is to achieve equity, inclusion, and justice. It's about working towards those principles and supporting people to achieve that, and amplifying the voices of lived experience and ensuring that those are the voices that are heard. So I want to just again congratulate those that have been involved in putting together such a wonderful e-symposium. I really encourage people to dig deep, to share, to be open to the speakers and the experiences. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful 2 days. So I'd like to just express my gratitude for being a part of this e-symposium in such a small way. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony. That was wonderfully articulated, and we're so pleased to have had you come and help us kick off our event here over the couple of days. That was absolutely wonderful. Again, another quick reminder to everyone: you are going to hear an array and a diversity of lived experience people and their stories, their experiences. They may share intimate parts of themselves or personal views. They may share political views. There may be challenge, there may be discomfort, there may not be. So always take care of yourself, as I mentioned at the start of the symposium. Just always do what you usually do to look after yourself, center yourself, perhaps think back to John's opening and try a few of those mindfulness tips and tricks. Always helpful. I'm trying to do it now as we speak because I am very nervous, but I'm also having a great time and really excited. So lots of different emotions going on. So again, you can connect with many of the speakers you're going to hear today on the Finding North network on the platform. And we're still strongly encouraging those courageous conversations. So we're going to see you in the next session for our keynote, keynote Faye Jackson, which I'm sure everyone is really excited to hear from. So see you in about 10 minutes.